Hello, and welcome to a lesson on DNS. Okay, in this lesson, we are going to explore what DNS servers are and what they do, and of course, how to install them and look at some of the components within the DNS server. Okay, so there's going to be very few print screen pictures. We'll do that later on, but I'm also going to ask you what questions when we go over the lecture. So there's going to be a little bit more lecturing because I want you to know there's a lot more details about how it works and the different components with DNS. So I'm going to ask you to type in a few questions. Although I'll give you this, I want to make sure that you went through the whole video. I'll be asking you a question as we go along on what you need to submit. And we'll also get into the server itself and see how we're going to install it. The installation is extremely simple, and even within the DNS itself, how to configure it is not that difficult as well. Okay, the DNS, the domain name system is designed really to translate a domain name into an IP address. So if you typed, for example, www.microsoft.com, and you don't remember what that server IP address is, your computer for the very first time will go to the .com servers that are located somewhere. They look up Microsoft, and from there they'll give you the IP address. That's what the DNS servers, they give you the destination IP address so that your computer can stamp it on the packet. Who gives you the source IP address when you turn your computer on? That's from the lesson, from the last lesson, the DHCP server. So when you turn your computer on, the DHCP server is the one that gives you your source IP address to stamp on your packet, and your DNS server is the one that gives you the destination IP address to stamp on the packet. And that's how you get both IP addresses. The DNS server again is to make sure that, well, not, it's to make sure that you don't have to remember the IP addresses. It's easier to remember names. There are three really components in the infrastructure of the DNS. There are servers, and in the servers, that's where the database of all the DNS information is, and they are designed to serve the client. So their server, the database, and the clients are really the infrastructure of the whole DNS. You can install DNS either standalone. You don't have to have Active Directory, but if you installed Active Directory, then it's already integrated. So we don't even have to install DNS, as we will see later on, because it's already been installed. We already installed the Active Directory domain services. And to have that, you have to have DNS. So it's already installed for us. It does the replication. So it's really, it's a very easy process. We don't even have to install it. Even today, we don't have to install. So I'll take you step by step on how to do it. Way to do it if you wanted to. You have to really install a new server because I didn't want to do that. Anyway, we'll get to that later on. There are some types of queries, when you are asking for the DNS to do something for you. For example, there's an iterative query. That's when the server responds with what it knows. So when you send a query, an iterative query to the DNS, and the DNS looks at what it has and it tells you what it knows. It doesn't look for it anywhere else. It doesn't do a search for you. It doesn't allow you to go somewhere else to go, like a default, like a default route. If you remember, we talked about that with the Cisco classes. It doesn't send you anywhere. If I don't know what it is, I'll tell you I don't know. If I know, then I'll tell you what I know. That's an iterative query. Recursive query is when the server will not only, if I don't know where it is, that means I'm going to do a search. Maybe another DNS server has it, so I can refer you to someone else to reconcile the name that you are sending, to give you an IP address. Okay, a DNS server can be either authoritative or non-authoritative. Authoritative servers give you an answer or say, I don't have any answer for you. So it's either will say, okay, here's the IP address, or The answer is no, it doesn't exist. Non-authoritative servers, what they do is they use their cache or forwarders. This is when it comes back to recursive, right? So if non-authoritative, that means if I don't know the name, then I'm going to look at my cache memory. Maybe I've done it before. Maybe I went to this company or the name, www.school.com .edu, for example. And if it's not there, then I look at my cache. If I've been there already, I'll just grab it from the cache. I don't even have to go out to a DNS server because I already did it. The forwarder means if I don't know, I'll just go. There's a list of forwarder servers that I can reach, and I'll say, okay, go to this server, and he'll probably figure out. He'll probably knows where the name that you're looking for. Okay, so that's the forwarder server. It sends the query to. Conditional forwarders are, we'll look at all of these, by the way. So these are some that you may be able to configure on the DNS. So a forwarder is a server that you will send the information to look up for a name that you don't know. Conditional forwarder means like if you typed in www.microsoft.com and I don't know what the IP address is. So you can tell your DNS server that if somebody types in, that's a condition. If somebody types in www.microsoft.com, send them to the following server, right? That's a conditional forwarder. A regular forwarder is just anybody that if I don't know anything, just send it to there. Okay. All right. So question number 1. That I want you to type in a Microsoft Word. Why we do not have to install a DNS server when we installed the Active Directory domain services. And what's the answer? Because it's automatically installed, right? All right, so please write that down. And again, I know that you're going to have all these notes. I just want to make sure that you have listened and went through them with me. Okay. And what's the second question is what's the difference between a forwarder and a conditional forwarder queries? Well, they're down here. A forwarder is a server that sends the query to, and a conditional forwarder is if you get a specific name, then you forward it to a specific DNS server. All right, let's go and talk about cache, DNS cache. When you cache something in, that means if you went somewhere for the very first time, your computer will immediately caches it in, right, on the host file name, and will also remember it so that next time you don't have to go to the server. So the very first thing that your computer will do when you type in a name is it will go to its own cache, its own memory to see if it's already there. If it's already there, you cache it in. It's much quicker, and you get your IP address, and you're good to go. And you may even go to a server. There's a specific server next to you, so you don't even have to go out to a DNS server and get the names from there. So what enterprise networks may do is they'll have a cache-only servers. And what they do is they save them. So anybody that goes out to all over the internet and instead of having to leave the network next time is they cache in all the names that you have into one server. So your computers in the network, every time they go into a name after they check themselves out, if it's not there, then they go to this caching server within the network. And if it's there, then they'll use it. If it's not, then they'll have to go outside and get it. That means there are .com servers out there, .edus, .orgs, .nets. These are the top level domain servers out in the world, and they could be, they can see a lot. But believe it or not, they don't get a lot of traffic. At one time, there was an attack to the I think .com servers many years ago, and no one really experienced any problems. And the reason for that is because everyone that you usually when you go on the internet, you've already been to locations that you've been there before, and that means your computer have cached in the name already, and you did not have to go to this .com server, those big huge .com servers that are out there. So when there was an attack to those .com servers, you didn't experience it because when you went to the sites that you wanted to go to, you used your cache. All right. So cache is really makes things for speeding things up and making and reducing network traffic. You can clear the DNS cache using the console command or the DNS CMD command. You can also do it on the client by typing ipconfig flush DNS if you wanted to just clear it. Okay. DNS zone. The zone is where the area where you put in the names. We'll see that when we get into the DNS. So that's where you type in the name and the IP address. You can have the the DHCP server immediately communicate with the DNS server every time somebody gets an IP address. You immediately put that in the DNS and vice versa. If you want, you can erase it. And we'll see some of that. There are different types of namespaces that you can have in there. You can have a host for an IP address, a host for a an IPv6 address, and you can have an alias, and there are many other things. We'll discuss that later on. There's a primary zone that holds the master copy. So when you create a zone on a newly DNS server that's going to be have the master copy. You can read and write into it. You can create a secondary zone on a DNS server. So that's going to be a read-only database. You cannot update that database. So this is only for queries to give information at, but you can't make any changes to the actual zone. You can change the records. You know, when you put in the name and an IP address, that's called a record. There's a stub zone. We'll talk about that later on. And the other thing the Active Directory integrated DNS zone. This is what you get when you install ADS. The database is stored not on the server, but in the Active Directory database, and it's always replicated. So it's great. So once you install the Active Directory domain services, you already got your DNS and you just get to work. And there's really not a lot of work. Microsoft takes care of everything in terms of redundancy and replications and all of that. Forward lookup is when you type in a name, it gives you an IP address. Reverse lookup, if you give somebody's name and you want an IP address. That's not common. We can even set that up. I'll show you how to set that up if you want to do reverse lookup. But forward lookup is the default. Dynamic updates is like I said earlier, the client or the DHCP will send updates to the primary to create a record automatically. So you don't have to go and manually type in the records, although you could do that too. You know, like client now, every time you goes, usually we use the cache. That's why we don't do this as much with the dynamic updates. Okay, question number 2. Um, why is the cache, DNS cache is used? The DNS cache is used for fastest querying responses, right? Question number 3. Um, what are what's the difference between the primary and the secondary zone? Well, the primary zone has the master copy of the database, and you can read and write. The secondary, you cannot do the updates, right? It's only read-only database. Okay, so that's okay. So let's continue. All right, so we mentioned before a stub zone. What is a stub zone? It allows DNS for delegation. A delegation is where there's another DNS server that has been delegated the authority over a stub domain. Stub is an area where it's not communicating with anybody else. Nobody connects to that one zone, right? Just like a stub network. So it only communicates outwards, right? It does not communicate with any other stub zone. Before a stub zone, all delegated have to be managed manually. But now a stub zone will allow allows for automatic propagation of delegation to DNS servers. So if you have a stub zone, it will automatically go to the primary and it's delegated to go to a specific server and not communicate with anyone else. Okay. Okay. Active Directory integrated zone. So again, like I said, every time you install Active Directory, you already have the DNS. What's the advantages of having a DNS part of the Active Directory? Well, there are multi-master replications to all other DNS servers, so you automatically sends out copies, replications. So that's for redundancy purposes. Streamlined data replications. Everything is done automatically for you. You don't have to worry about if there's up-to-date copies being replicated over to the other DNS servers. Secure dynamic updates. All the updates that are being sent are encrypted. Make sure that no one else, you don't have someone else coming in, putting a DNS server and getting updates in, a rogue DNS server, for example. And also backward compatible to secondary zones. So really, if you wanted to really sit back and not do much with DNS, you don't even have to install it. You just need to, once you have the Active Directory, let Microsoft do everything else for you. Okay? When it comes to records, let's take a look at some records. The records are the names and the IP addresses that you put in the zone. That's called a record. So when you type, for example, www.microsoft.com, and the next to it is the IP address, that's a record, and that record is placed inside a zone, right? So there are different types of records that are in there. There's an A host. So when you type in a name and an IP address, an IPv4 address, that's called an A record. 4As, quad A's is it's for an IPv6 address. A pointer is for the reverse lookup. So if you want to create a reverse lookup, so you'll have a name and if it's a pointer, that means you could do it the other way. So if I give you an IP address, give me the name. Start of authority is, this is the start of authoritative over a zone, the SOA. There's a service locator. So when you are looking for a computer that has a certain service, so for example, if I typed something and I say, I'm looking for World Wide Web services. So this will say, hey, this name has this service for you. I'll give you an IP address for that. Not a specific name. If you're looking for a service, I know this computer can do it for you. So that's what the service locator is. Name of a server is the name of another DNS server. Mail exchanger, point to an email service. It is with the @ sign. The CNAME canonical names, that's like an alias. So when you type, by the way, for example, www.microsoft.com, on their server, Microsoft doesn't have the name of the server is not called www.microsoft.com, for example. It may be called web server 1. So when you type that in your DNS server, say, I know the name is not really www, that's just an alias. The actual server name is web server 1. This is what he's really looking for, and let's go look for that. Okay, so next question is that I want you to do. How would you create an IPv4 host name and an IPv6 host name? And the answer is, when you type it, well, I should say, never mind. What is the record for an IPv4 host and an IPv6? For IPv4, it's A. For IPv6, it's the quad A. Right? That's enough. Let's continue. Zone transfer. And, the zones can actually, this is the last thing before we get to the actual server. The zones themselves, they can transfer and copy themselves from one zone to another, right? So this is with standard zone from the primary to the secondary. We do not do this with integrated zones because we've already done that, right? So, and by the way, which is good because zone transfers can be a security risk because somebody can come in and create a DNS server, be a secondary, and he'll get all the information from the primary because they're done automatically, and then there'll be an issue. That's why you need to authorize the start of the authorization for transferring as well. So when you have an AD integrated circuit, integrated zones, you don't have to worry about that. But if you create a DNS on a standalone, then the primary and the secondary they can transfer. You can set them up to transfer their zones to each other. All right. We'll take a look at that, by the way. although we're not going to actually do it because again, we have our DNS within the Active Directory. There are, if you needed to do that with the standard zone, there are two types of standards: full transfers or incremental transfers. The full transfer zones is you transfer the whole zone. Incremental is you do it, incremental is done is when you, after you do a full transfer, you just do what changes where within the zone is transferred. Okay, and that's really it. Okay, the last question is, what are the two different types of transfers that are done on a standard zone? And the answer is full transfers and incremental transfer. Okay, let's go now to the server and take a look at the DNS. And we're going to have some you're going to snap some print screens in addition to what you just answered those questions. So let's go to the server and log in. Okay. All right, when you log in, as you can see, if you go to the start menu, there are two places where you can get to your DNS already. I know you can see it right here, but you can go to the start menu, hit the arrow key, and you can see that you have a DNS in here. You can access it from here, or you can go to tools. It's already in there for you. Again, because you already installed the Active Directory domain services. So just click on the DNS. All right, you'll see it installed. Expand it. And you'll see you'll have all of these, the forward lookup, the reverse lookup, the conditional forwarders. We'll look at that. Let's look at the forward lookup because that's automatically done for you. And here are the two servers, the XYZ server, just expand that. And here are the records inside. This is the zone for the XYZ.local. So all of these names will have whatever, blah, 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 .xyz local. Awad server 2012.z WinPC. See, these records are already being assigned inside. All right. So here let's create, you know what? Let's create a record. So you can right click in here and let's create a new A or quad A. You know, one A is for IPv6, IPv4, quad A is for IPv6. So click on new host. And let's give it the name Mike. And let's create the quad A. So let's do 2001 colon ADB colon ACAD colon. He's going to be in subnet 5 colon. He is going to be number 45. Right? You can create a pointer to it if you want to, and so you can do this, and you can say add a host. Okay, it says you cannot add the can't add the pointer because the guy doesn't exist, Mike. It's okay. So just click OK, and you're done, and there it is. Right? So you just have to write the IP address in there. And that's your IP address. So you wrote it out with the, colon, and if you remember from the class with IPv6, it fills in the full 128-bit number. It's written in hexadecimal number. All right. So expand this like this and take a snap picture. I know that you can actually create a record in primary zone, in the zone. Okay. You know what? Let's delete it, highlight it. Make sure again, did I say print? Yeah, print screen this. I just want to make sure that I said that. Okay, print. I'm sorry. Let's delete it. Okay. You can actually right click, go to properties of a name if you wanted to. There's not much you can do in there. It just gives you the IP address. You can set securities on them if you want. It has only permission of read only. But there's really not much else you can do. Okay. Go to the actual local XYZ server, right click, and let's go to properties. When you go to properties, you can click on zone transfers. Okay, you see it's grayed out already. You don't have to transfer any zones. You don't have to transfer this zone to any server. And the reason for that, again, because Microsoft does that automatically for you because of their applications, because you are integrated part of the Active Directory. If you wanted it, you can do it if you want. You just click Allow Zone Transfer to any server. That's very dangerous if you leave it to any servers. Or you can say, I want to transfer the listed on the name servers in the tab. So whatever. So if you have other servers right here, um, the zone transfer will be transferred to all of these servers. So all you have to do, click here, and you will add whatever you need to. Well, it's not going to work out for me. Or you can, if you have a new zone that freshly zoned, then you'll be able to. I'm sorry, a freshly DNS, not integrated. You'll be able to do that. Or allow to the following servers. So you can click edit, and you can add in the name of the servers you want. So let's say abc.edu. I'm sorry. So not even a click here. And let's say I give it the IP address 123.6. Okay, and it's not going to work because it doesn't even exist. It's not going to allow me to do that. Okay, never mind. Should have never have done that. But so again, just unclick this. Make sure that you don't even have to do that. All right, so this is actually where you can do zone transfers. Again, because we are part of the, I keep saying that, DNS, part of the Active Directory. You don't have to do that at all. Okay, so click cancel. If you go to, let's go to, okay, you can just minimize that. Let's go to reverse lookups. It's empty, so we can create a new zone just for reverse lookups if you wanted to. So you can right click, create a new zone. You can go next. Now, you can create a primary zone. Is it going to be a secondary or is it going to be a stub zone? Okay, so if you wanted a primary zone, you can click on next. Secondary zone, remember, it's only a read only. So let's just create a primary and select how you want the zone to be replicated. Okay, so it's going to be replicated to the domain XYZ local. So you can click on that. Is it going to be, you want to be reversed for lookup for IPv4 addresses or IPv6? So let's do IPv4. And the network ID is, for example, 192.168.10.0. Whoops, .10.0. Okay, that .10. You don't even have the hosts. So that's where it's going to be looked up. And allow only secure dynamic updates recommended. So that's yes, I only want secured. And you can create finished. There you go. And now you can go in here and view, add and remove. You can create another new zone if you wanted to. And here's where you can do the actual name. So I can do right click, and now you can create a new pointer, right? So here's the IP address that you want. Let's say .5, and I want to give them the name Jim, and just click, and there you go. All right, so do me a favor, take another snapshot of this. This is how you can do reverse lookup. Set it up. So if somebody types in an IP address, they'll give them the name, Jim, instead. Again, as I said earlier, this is really not done as much. Let's go to forwarders. So let's go to the actual server, right click on the server, go to properties, and here are the forwarders. You click on them. This is where you can have, if the server does not know a name, looked up a name in your in the forwarder lookup zone, in the forward lookup zone, not the reverse lookup zone. It doesn't know, it will send them to the following address, right? automatically, regardless of what you have typed. Conditional, we're not even going to bother doing that. Conditional is down here. You right click. I'm sorry. Conditional forwarders. So you can click on new conditional forwarder and you can create. So for example, if somebody typed in www.abc.com, and we should give them the following IP address. We should send them to the following server. So click on an IP address from the DNS server. So for a specific, actually z.com, for a specific website that I don't know, send them to the following. So that's a condition. Send them to the following server. So this is ABC. All right, and this is another print screen that I want you to do. Okay. Okay, going backward. Let's just click on this reverse, right click, and I want to delete it. So let's delete that reverse lookup zone. Okay, good. Because I just want to leave it the way it is. Okay, what else do you need to know? You can create a new zone if you wanted to. Configure a DNS server fresh in addition to the one that's integrated. So this is how you would do that. You can go to add, by the way, we never done that. So if let's say you have a new server, you don't want the Active Directory, you just want it to be a DNS server. So you go to add roles and role based, and you just go through next. DNS is installed already, but if you clicked on it, you go to next, and you just go through the whole thing, right? I'm not even going to go through it. I don't want to install a new. It just takes a few steps, and once it's installed, it's over. You'll get to see, again, I'm just going to access DNS. You'll get to see it from here. This is what you'll get. So we already have it. So why bother installing it again? Okay, that's it for DNS. And until the next lesson, keep up the good work, guys.